Yo, what up, y'all? It's your boy, Shigluch, LOXD Block, Silverback. Hey, yo, right now I need to shout out the ISUPK classes.
I want to give a huge, big, humongous shout out to all the UPK schools.
Shout out to Black Watch, hosted by General Johanna. Word, I need y'all to check out Cross the Line Radio as well, man. They've been open all week from 7 to 9. They ain't shut down because of the corona, the COVID and all that. They rockin' strong, you know what I mean?
Think we got a problem, but really it ain't though. It's one of me and these bitches, I count about 3, 4. Think we got a problem, but homie just all talk. He ain't gon' pop a balloon with a pitchfork. Think we got a problem in the club with this dog. Rude boys, dogs, ladies, everybody.
It's like, yo, you will be irritating me.
What?
It's like,
Yeah, that's right. Y'all know what it is. It's the ISUPK. That's the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge out of Harlem, New York, since 1969 under Commanding General Johanna. And we are sent out into these streets to teach the so-called Black, so-called Hispanic, and so-called Native American people that we are the true Hebrew Israelites of the Holy Bible. We are the descendants of those that came out of Egypt. We are the descendants that went into Egypt. We are the descendants that went into captivity in Assyria. We are the descendants of those that went into captivity in Babylon. We are the descendants of those that went into captivity under the Persians and the Medes. We are those of the descendants of those that went into captivity that was under the Greeks. We are those that went into captivity under the Romans. And we are those that Yahweh Shah actually said that we will be led captives into all nations. So I want to look at that real quick. That's in Luke 21. We're going to go to Luke 21, and we're going to start at verse 20. Read. Hold up, Salakia, get the mic. Like, tonight's class is a law class, and this law class is going to be on Melchizedek, right? And Melchizedek, dealing with Melchizedek, he was a priest continuously forever. We in the School of Universal Practical Knowledge, we understand who that was. That was an appearance of Yahweh Shah, all right? This was an appearance of the Mashiach. Let me be a little bit more politically correct when I make that statement. But remember, I'm saying we are the descendants of those that went into captivity during the time of Yahweh Shah when we were in Jerusalem. We were the ones that was chased out of Jerusalem. We were the ones that was surrounded by the Romans. This is Luke chapter 21 and verse 20. Read.
Khan. It's the book of Luke, chapter 21, verse 20.
Come on.
And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies.
Now, when you see Jerusalem compassed with armies, it's talking about the Romans actually compassing and surrounding. When it talks about compass, it's talking about surrounding Jerusalem, right? It's talking about surrounding Jerusalem. Read.
Then know that the desolation thereof is nigh.
Then know that the desolation, this judgment, this invasion, this siege of Jerusalem is about to happen. All right, read.
Verse 21.
Come on.
Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains.
Now, those that actually been to Vegas will actually be able to have a better image and a better picture of what I'm getting ready to say. If you went to Vegas, if you look around Vegas, you see mountains all around Vegas. All right. And those mountains is actually separating Vegas from another part of that land. All right. That's how it was. That's how it is in Jerusalem. In Jerusalem, those mountains actually represented what we call today Africa. It represented places like Egypt. It represented like going into places like the west coast of Africa. So this is why he said, read that again.
Khan. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains.
Let those that are in Judea flee to the mountains. Flee to the mountains. Go that way. Flee to the mountains. And when we say flee to the mountains, we're saying actually go into Africa. Like for instance, an example is when Yahushua was being born, and the angel of the Lord actually told Joseph to take Yahushua and take him over into Egypt. Egypt was right next to us. It was walking distance. All right. So we went to Egypt. Whenever there's danger, that's where we flee. If you look at during the time of any major migration out of danger, where are they going to migrate to? Water. Wherever you're going to migrate, you're going to migrate to the water. So where will we migrate? That way we will migrate to the Nile. We will migrate to the west coast of Africa where there is water. That's where we will migrate from. Salakia, migrate to. Read.
Khan. And let them which are in the midst of it depart out.
So Salakia. So he's saying if you're in the midst there, if you're in the midst of it, depart, leave. Read.
Khan. And let not them that are in the countries enter thereunto.
If you outside of Jerusalem, don't go back in. Read.
Khan. For these be the days of vengeance.
These be the days of what?
Of vengeance.
Come on.
That all things which are written may be fulfilled.
Now all things must be fulfilled. Well, what has to be fulfilled? Let me give you one of the things that have to be fulfilled. Judah and the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, which is Israel, have to come out of the land of the north together. All right. In order for that to happen, if Ephraim, according to the book of 2nd Ezra, is already in the Americans, and Judah, dominantly the southern kingdom, is in Jerusalem, and now now is going to the west coast of Africa, it's something that must be fulfilled. Read that again. That all things. Read that again.
Khan. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled.
Must be fulfilled. All right. Now I want you to go to Jeremiah. I'm going to show you one of those things that must be fulfilled. Go to Jeremiah 3:18. What did Yahushua mean when he said, for all things must be fulfilled? I'm going to give you one of those things that must be fulfilled. Here's one of those things that must be fulfilled. All right. Jeremiah 3:18.
Khan.
Come on.
This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 3, verse 18. In those days. Read it again. In those days.
Read.
The house of Judah,
come on,
shall walk with the house of Israel.
So it's saying the house of Judah must walk with the house of Israel. At this time, the house of Judah and the house of Israel was separated. Israel had already started going over to the west coast of Africa. They were already started going to North America. They had already started fleeing to that land. So he's saying, read it again.
In those days,
come on,
the house of Judah shall walk with the house of Israel.
The house of Judah will walk with the house of Israel, like we're doing here in the School of Universal Practical Knowledge. In this School of Universal Practical Knowledge, under Commanding General Yohana, 1 West, we are the ones that gave birth and understanding on this continent that we are the lost sheep of the house of Israel. We are the seed of Abraham. We are the seed of Isaac. We are the seed of Jacob. It is 1 West that woke that up. It's 1 West that the Spirit of the Lord came and put his information, gave his information to. And those 7 heads put it forth. And now we're here today. All right? Remember, it says, read it from the top again. Understand what it's saying. In order for what Yahushua said to be true, there had to be things that had to be fulfilled. And captivity and going into the west coast of Africa, leaving Jerusalem, had to take place in order for all things to be fulfilled. Read that from the top again.
It's the book of Jeremiah, chapter 3, verse 18.
Come on.
In those days, the house of Judah shall walk with the house of Israel.
Come on.
And they shall come together.
They shall do what?
They shall come together.
They shall do what?
They shall come together.
Come on.
Out of the land of the north.
Out of North America. They should come out together. Out of where?
Out of the land of the north.
Come on.
To the land that I have given for an inheritance unto your fathers.
That's what has to take place. So when Yahushua says, go back to Luke, read it again.
Like Luke 21 and 3.
Where was you at? You was at 21 and 23, right?
21 and 23.
Where you stop at?
So like
you stopped at 22. Read 22.
22.
21 and 22.
Read. And all things whatsoever ye shall ask in prayer.
Luke 21 and 22.
This is Matthew. This is the book of Luke, chapter 21, verse 22.
Come on.
For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled.
May be fulfilled. So how can we come out of the land of the north and together? How could that happen if we still in Jerusalem? How could that happen if we still on the west coast of Africa? Things had to take place. The first thing had to take place is we had to be out of Jerusalem. Well, how are we going out of Jerusalem? By a judgment that all things may be fulfilled. So now we're going out of Jerusalem. And when we get out of Jerusalem, read, go down to verse 24.
And they shall fall by the edge of the sword.
It's talking about us. He's actually saying we're going to fall by the edge of the sword, those that is still in that land. Read.
And shall be led away captive.
Shall be led away where?
Captive.
Go ahead.
Into all nations.
No, it's some nations.
Into all nations.
In one nation.
Into all nations.
Into what?
Into all nations.
Tell me who has been in these days led into captivity into how many nations?
All nations.
Into all nations. Who did that happen to? Read.
And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles.
All right. So this is why we are letting you know that we are those people. We are the descendants. We are the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob became Israel. Israel had 12 sons. We are the descendants of him. Now, some people would say, well, we don't all look the same. Well, we have one progenitor. The progenitor for all of us, for the blacks, Hispanics, and Native American people, is Jacob. Jacob became Israel. But from that came 4 women. So it's one man and 4 women. So we're not going to all look the same. We're going to have some similarities, but we're not going to all look the same. All right? It's this man, which is Israel, which was Jacob, now Israel, had the 12 tribes of Israel by 4 different women. All right? So understand that. So when you're talking to somebody and they're saying, Well, the Native Americans don't look like, well, okay, what about it? We all come from 4 different women. We don't all come, it ain't just one, we didn't all come from one man and one woman, and boom, all 12 tribes came from them. All 12 tribes came from what? 4 different women. One man, 4 different women. I know y'all got some brothers that y'all know that has children by different women. They look similar, but they look different. All right? Simple and plain. This is the case. All right? So we are those people. So tonight's class, like I said, is speaking about the order of Melchizedek, right? Melchizedek. And it's talking about the first covenant and the second covenant. So the first place we're going to go to and we're going to touch on, and we're going to be in here a lot, is Hebrews. So we're going to go to Hebrews chapter 9. Now, if you saw the last class that I did, not last week, but the week before last, I did a class and I stopped at Second Corinthians 3. And it's talking about the glory of the old covenant and the glory of the new covenant. Well, we're going to continue on that, talking about the old covenant and the new covenant, right? So I want you to hold that. I want you to hold Hebrews 9. And I also want you to go to book of Peter. Yeah, that's where we're going to go. Go to 1 Peter chapter 2 and give me verse 9.
This is the book of 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9.
Come on.
But ye are a chosen generation.
You are a chosen generation, so-called black, so-called Hispanic, and so-called Native American people. You are a chosen generation. The Most High chose you, according to Deuteronomy 7:6, to be above all nations and all people on the face of the earth. He has chosen you. All right. So he's saying here, ye are a chosen generation. Read.
A royal priesthood.
A what?
A royal priesthood.
We are a royal priesthood. Read.
And holy nation.
A holy nation means, the word holy means to be set apart. We a nation that's different from all nations. We set apart in the eyes of the Most High. Read.
A peculiar people.
Come on.
That ye should shew forth the praises of him who have called you out of darkness into his marvelous light.
All right, so key thing on what we're looking at here is you are a royal priesthood. Now we know under the first covenant, the priests were who? Who were the priests? You know who the priests were?
Khan.
Who was it?
Levites.
The Levites. They carried the order of the priesthood. People always say, well, how could you be a priest? How could you be a priest and a prophet today? You a Levite? Well, this says, but ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood. So how could that be? How could that be? Well, that's what we're going to explore tonight. We're going to explore the priesthood under the order of Melchizedek, right? That's what we're going to explore. So now let's go to Hebrews chapter 9.
Khan.
Read verse 1.
This is the book of Hebrews, chapter 9, verse 1.
Come on.
Then verily the first covenant had also ordinances of divine service.
Come on.
And a worldly sanctuary.
And a worldly sanctuary. Why is it saying you have a worldly? It's a worldly sanctuary. He said it's a worldly sanctuary is because this is where the sanctuary was placed. This is where the sanctuary was established. This was under the first covenant. Read.
Khan. For there was a tabernacle made, the first, wherein was the candlestick, and the table, and the shewbread, which is called the sanctuary.
All right, so it's talking about under the first covenant. Who was the first covenant given to? The first covenant was given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Actually, if you want to get technical about it, because I like to be a little bit technical about different things. I want you guys to understand something and follow me. This covenant was being carried over by Noah. It was being carried over by Noah. And then the Lord chose Shem Then the Lord chose from Shem. He didn't choose Ham or Japheth. He chose Shem, right? And from Shem came Eber, and from Eber came Abram. And then Abram became Abraham. And then Abraham had Isaac, and Isaac had Jacob, right? So that's who the first covenant was with, all right? And the first covenant had, according to verse 1, it says, then verily, the word, when we say verily, it's actually saying truly. So he's saying, then truly, the first covenant had also ordinances of divine service and of worldly sanctuary, because it was given and passed down to men. And you're going to understand what I'm saying in a minute. In a minute. All right. So we got the first covenant, right? I want you to shoot down to verse 9. Still talking about the first covenant.
Wait
a minute, Salaki. Khan, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
The book of This is the book of Hebrews, chapter 9, verse 9.
Come on.
Which was the figure for the time then present.
All right. So it's saying, which was an illustration for the time, for this present. Go ahead.
Khan. In which were offered both gifts and sacrifices that could not make him that did the service perfect, as pertaining to the conscience.
So it couldn't clear his conscience of committing sinful acts. All right. What we did was, when we did something wrong or we transgressed the law, we would just do a sacrifice. So it wasn't clearing our conscience. It was just putting a Band-Aid on a wound where you needed stitches. All right. Read.
Khan. Verse 10, which stood only in meats and drinks and divers washings and carnal ordinances imposed on them until the time of Reformation.
Okay, so when he's talking about the priests, and he's saying with the priest, only thing the priest got out of it, he didn't get a clear conscience from doing these sacrifices of animals. It wasn't doing the job. All right, and the only thing he was getting was meat and drinks and different ceremonial washing ceremonies and carnal ordinances. Now, one of the carnal ordinances we're going to look at is the priesthood. The priesthood was a carnal ordinance. All right. And I'm going to prove it. All right. I'm going to prove it. So what is it saying? And what is our objective here? Our objective here in the first covenant is we're talking about the sacrifices. And there is no sacrifice that can do what? That can make you perfect. All right. It can't clear your conscience. It's only putting a Band-Aid on a wound where you need stitches. All right. So now go over to, we're going to break some things down tonight. Go over to, we're going to start at Hebrews. Matter of fact, dealing with Melchizedek, right? Go to Hebrews 6. I'm coming from the hip. I do this from time to time. Look, when you're dealing with Melchizedek, right? This is not an easy teaching or an easy thing for people to understand. All right? It's not. It becomes a little difficult and a little bit of confusing sometimes when you're dealing with Melchizedek. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to slow it down a little bit, and we're going to look at how the priestly duty is done under the old covenant, dealing with the high priest and what his job is and what he has to do. And we're going to look at under the new covenant, who's the high priest and how does it work and what do he have to do? All right. This is what we're going to look at. So I want you to start at, you know what? Let's just go right to it. Go back to Hebrews chapter 2, and we're going to start at verse 16. Come on. Now, this is talking about Yahweh Shah, because Yahweh Shah is our high priest after the order of Melchizedek. I'm going to show it to you. Read.
To the book of Hebrews, chapter 2, verse 16. For verily he took not on him the nature of angels.
So it's saying that Yahushua did not take up on the nature of angels. Read.
But he took on him the seed of Abraham.
But he took up on him the seed of Abraham. So let's explore that for a minute. It says, for verily he took not on the nature of angels. So let's look at these different natures. I want you to go to 1 Corinthians chapter 15. Now follow me now. Watch. Start at verse 39. Now remember, we coming off of the scripture where it says that he did not take up on the nature of an angel. Verse 39 of 1 Corinthians 15 and 39. Read.
Come on. 1 second. The book of 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 39.
Come on.
All flesh is not the same flesh.
All flesh is not the same flesh. And it's talking about this flesh. All flesh is not the same flesh. Now remember, Yahushua did not take up on the nature of angels. So he's establishing here that all flesh is not the same flesh. Read.
Okay. But there is one kind of flesh of men, another flesh of beasts, another of fishes, and another of birds.
Now, you know what's interesting about this? He's saying, notice, all flesh is not the same flesh, but there is one kind of flesh for men, one kind of flesh for beasts, one kind of flesh for fish, and one kind of flesh for bird. Everything is different. One kind. Let's explore this one kind. Go to Genesis. Hold that, because we're going to go right back to that. Go to Genesis chapter 1. We have to establish a law here. All right, because this is the law class, and we're going to establish a law here. We're going to establish this law right here. Watch this. Start at Genesis first chapter 1, verse 11. Genesis chapter 1, verse 11.
The book of Genesis chapter 1, verse 11.
Come on.
And God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed.
So he's saying the Most High Power said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed. Read.
And the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind.
After who?
His kind.
After who?
His kind.
Read.
Okay. Whose seed is in itself.
Whose seed is on the side.
In itself.
Whose seed is coming from somewhere else.
In itself.
Read.
Upon the earth. And it was so.
Read.
Verse 12. And the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after Salakia, after his kind.
No, after someone else's kind.
After his kind.
After something else kind.
After his kind.
After something over their kind.
After his kind.
After his kind. Why is it after his kind? Because the seed is within itself. Every seed is after who?
Itself.
After itself. Read.
Kind. And the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself.
Was where?
In itself.
Read.
After his kind.
After what?
His kind.
After what?
His kind.
After his kind. So every seed is after his kind. So if you have a bird seed, the bird seed is after what kind?
His kind.
If a man's seed is after what kind?
His kind.
If a fish, what kind is that fish?
His kind.
His kind. So let's go back. I think we got the picture. I can give you some more on that if you need. Matter of fact, go to Genesis 1 and 24.
It's the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 24.
I'm going to show you that everything is after its kind. Read.
And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind.
After who kind?
After his kind.
Go down to verse 25.
Kind. And God made the beasts of the earth after his kind.
After who kind?
After his kind.
Come on.
And cattle after their kind.
After who kind?
After their kind.
Come on.
And everything that creepeth upon the earth.
No, some things.
Everything.
No, a little things.
Everything.
3% of the things.
Everything.
Half of the things.
Everything.
Everything. Read.
That creepeth upon the earth after his kind.
After who kind?
His kind.
I think we get the picture. I think they get the picture. Everything is after his kind. Remember, it says Yahushua did not take up on the nature of angels, but he took up on the nature of the seed of Abraham. So if it was of the seed of Abraham, that means it was after his kind. All right, let's go back. Genesis, Salakia, 1 Corinthians 15.
Kind.
All right, read that from the top, 39 again.
But, Salakia, all flesh is not the same flesh, but there is one kind of flesh.
There's what?
One kind of flesh.
It's one kind of flesh because everything is after its own kind. It's one kind of flesh of men. Read.
Another flesh of beasts.
It's one kind of flesh of beasts. Read.
Another of fishes.
Another of fishes. Go ahead.
And another of birds.
Another of birds. So everything is after a seed, after its own kind. Yahushua did not take upon the nature of angels. Read.
There are also celestial bodies.
There are celestial bodies. So there's heavenly bodies. Read.
And bodies terrestrial.
And there's earthly bodies. An angel would have a celestial body, and the seed of Abraham would have an earthly body. Read.
Kind. But the glory of the celestial is one, and the glory of the terrestrial is another.
Why? Because they after their own kind. They're different. So Yahushua was made after the seed of David. He did not take up on the nature of angels. So he did not take up on the seed that will produce a celestial body. He took up on the seed that will have a terrestrial body. Right? Don't believe me? I'm going to hit you with one more. Go to Romans 1 and 3. Hit you with one more. Remember, he read in Hebrews 2 and 16, it says, for verily he took not upon the nature of angels, but he took upon him the seed of Abraham. Romans 1 and 3. Let's see what kind of body it was. Was it a celestial body or was it a terrestrial body?
Kind.
Read.
This is the book of Romans, chapter 1, verse 3.
Come on.
And concerning his son, Jesus Christ, our Lord, which was made of the seed of David.
He was made of what?
Of the seed of David.
Made of the seed of who?
David.
We know that the seed of David is after its own kind. Man. Celestial, not celestial. Read.
According to the flesh.
According to the flesh. According to the flesh. According to the body. So he did not take up, we're going back to Hebrews. He did not take upon the nature of angels, but he took upon him the seed of Abraham, right? Verse 17, Hebrews 2 and 17. Got it?
Almost there, son.
Hebrews 2 and 17.
It's the book of Hebrews, chapter 2, verse 17. Wherefore, in all things, it behooved him to be made like unto his brethren.
But it behooved him. All right? Remember, he did not take upon the nature of angels, but he took upon the seed of Abraham. All right? So he was made like his brethren. He was made like his brethren. Go to Philippians 2 and 7. Hold that. We're going to shoot right back to it.
Come on.
Come on.
It's the book of Philippians chapter 2, verse 7.
Come on.
But made himself of no reputation.
Come on.
And took upon him the form of a servant.
Come on.
And was made in the likeness of men.
He was made in the likeness of men. Read.
And being found in fashion as a man.
He was as a man. Go ahead.
He humbled himself.
Come on.
And became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross.
All right, so now let's go back to Hebrews. So now we see that when it behooved him to be made like unto his brothers, he was just like the seed. He was the seed of Abraham. He was the seed of Abraham. His body was from the seed of Abraham. All right, read.
Khan. Am I reading 17 from the top?
You can read it from the top.
Khan, it's the book of Hebrews chapter 2, verse 17. Wherefore in all things it behooves him to be made like unto his brethren, that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest.
A what?
He might be a merciful and faithful high priest.
A high priest. In the Old Testament, this was the first covenant. It was called the chief priest. Aaron was the chief priest. All right? He was the chief priest. Yahushua now, under this second covenant, he would be the chief priest. He would be the high priest. Verse 18.
Khan. For in that he himself has suffered being tempted, he is able to succor them that are tempted.
So he's going to be able to aid us that are tempted. It's like being exposed to a deadly virus, but not being affected by it. Yahushua was exposed to high temptations when he went into the wilderness, but he wasn't affected by it. And this is what he's trying to teach us. He's trying to teach us that we have laws, statutes, and commandments that we have to follow. And by following those laws, statutes, and those commandments, when we're tempted, that's what we lean on. That's our aid. And Yahushua, when he was led into the wilderness, gave us a great example of that. So he was a high priest that was tempted like you and I. All right? Would it be fair? You know what's heavy about this? I'm going to tell y'all what's heavy about this. If Yahushua was made, this is why this is heavy. If Yahushua was made and took up on the nature of angels, right? And he was not made from the seed of man, right? And he came to be on the earth as a high priest, and he had to die and resurrect, that wouldn't be a big deal. I'm going to tell you why it wouldn't be a big deal, because he wasn't made like you and I. He wasn't made like you and I. If he came from a magic seed, if he came from a different type of nature, that wouldn't be a big deal. Okay, he died and he got up. But if he was made just like his brethrens, if he was made just like me and you, and he got up, now that's a big deal. If he was made just like me and you, and he was tempted by the enemy and wasn't affected, we can do it too. This is what he's showing us. This is why we need such a great high priest. We need a great high priest that was tempted just like us, so that he can bring aid to us, giving us understanding through these scriptures. All right? Now, keep going. Hebrews 3:1.
Khan. Wherefore, holy brethren, partakers of the heavenly calling.
All right, let's break that down. So he says, wherefore, holy means to be set apart. Brethren, talking about the 12 tribes of Israel. And he says, partakers. We're partakers of this heavenly calling. Well, what is this heavenly calling? We see over and over the saints are being called. The saints is being called. We can go to the book of Romans. You go to Romans chapter 1. You go to Ephesians chapter 1. Take a look at Galatians chapter 1. In these scriptures, it's saying it's the saints. We are those that are partakers of this heavenly calling. Let me show you, give you an example. Real quick, go to Romans 1. You can just shoot right to it. Go to Romans 1 and 6 and 7.
Mm-hmm. This is the book of Romans, chapter 1, verse 6. Among whom are ye also the called of Jesus Christ?
So he's calling Yahweh Mashiach. It's a calling, right? Read.
To all that be in Rome.
To all be in Rome. This is to this letter, this epistle of Rome. It was written. Read that again.
To all that be in Rome.
To all that be in Rome. Read.
Beloved of God.
Beloved of God.
Called to be saints.
Called to be saints. So when he says all them that are called in Rome, it's talking about the saints. Well, who is the saints? If you go to Psalms chapter 50 and 5, you get an understanding on who the saints are. Psalms 50 and 5 says, gather my saints together unto me, those that have made a covenant with me by sacrifice. Verse 7, hear, O my people, and I will speak, O Israel, and I will testify against thee. I am Yahweh, thy power. So those that made a covenant with him by a sacrifice is the Israelites. So the calling is the Israelites. So when you go to Hebrews 3 and 1, and it says partakers of that heavenly calling, it's talking about Israelites. Read.
Khan. It's the book of Romans, chapter 1.
No, Salakia, go to Hebrews 3 and 1. Go back to Hebrews 3 and 1.
Khan.
Come on.
Wherefore, holy brethren, partakers of the heavenly calling, consider the apostle and high priest of our profession, Mashiach Yahushua.
So it's saying consider the apostle. How is he an apostle? Give me John 20 and 21. John 20 and 21. Let's get it.
It's the book of John, chapter 20, verse 21.
Come on.
Then said Yahushua to them again, peace be unto you, as my Father hath sent me.
As my what?
Father hath sent me.
The word apostle means one that's sent. As what?
My Father hath sent me.
Read.
Even so send I you.
Even though I send you. So go back to Hebrews. So this is how he's our chief apostle. Now, and it says, and high priest. Now, remember, we started out by looking at the first covenant. So we're going to take a look at the high priest under the first covenant. Go to Numbers 3 and 32. It's very important on what we're looking at.
Khan. This is the book of Numbers, chapter 3, verse 32.
Now, remember, Aaron was the first high priest. Now, verse 32.
And Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, shall be chief over the chief of the Levites, and have the oversight of them that keep the charge of the sanctuary.
So the high priest is over all the priests. He's over all the priests. He's the high priest. So if we are a royal generation, we are going to need what? We're going to need a high priest under this covenant. Under this covenant right here is a more worldly ordinance. This is a more worldly ordinances because it was given for worldly men. And we're going to see that. You're about to see what I'm talking about in just a second. So now let's go back to Hebrews chapter 3. So it says, he is the high priest of our profession. So our declaration, our job, what we do here in the School of Universal Practical Knowledge, Yahushua is our apostle. He is our high priest, right, of our profession, right? Verse 2.
Khan, who was faithful to him that appointed him, as also Moses was faithful in all his house.
So even Moses was faithful in all his house. Now, when it says Moses was faithful, this is a shot for those that try to catch it. Was this talking about Moses' house, immediate house? Was it talking about his wife and kids? Or was it talking about all Israel? What was it talking about, Zerabakar?
This was talking about all Israel.
It's talking about all Israel because that was his house. Yahweh, Salakia, the Most High sent him to retrieve them and to be over them. That was his house, right? Read.
Khan, verse 3. For this man was counted worthy of more glory than Moses.
It's talking about Yahushua. Read.
Inasmuch as he who have builded the house have more honor than the house.
All right, go down to verse 6.
Khan, this is the book of Hebrews, chapter 3, verse 6. But Christ as a son over his own house.
Over whose house?
Over his own house.
Well, was Yahushua's house? Was it his house of his mother, Mary, and James and his siblings? Or was it over Israel? It's over Israel. So he had a house. So that means if he had a house, that means he was a high priest and he was an apostle and he also was a bishop. He also was a bishop. That's a shot to you. Go ahead, read.
Khan. I'm at verse 6, right? Whose house are we?
Whose house are we? So Yahushua was a bishop. He's a bishop over our house. He's a high priest over our house. He's a chief priest over our house. Because we're the house. We're the children. We're the children. All right? So those know who I'm talking about and what I'm talking about. They know what I'm talking about. Read.
Khan. If we hold fast the confidence and the rejoicing of the hope firm unto the end.
All right. So what we're establishing that under the old covenant, there were men that did that covenant. How did those men do those covenants? How was this done? We're going to show you that. Do me a favor now. I want you to go to Hebrews 10.
Khan.
Read.
It's the book of Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 1. For the law having a shadow of good things to come.
Now, we went over this before. The law having a shadow of good things to come. It's not the very thing. It's the shadow of it. It's teaching something. All right. It's leading to something. Read.
And not the very image of the things. Can never with those sacrifices which they were offered year by year,
come on,
continually make the comers thereunto perfect.
Right. We just went over something just like this in the last I think that was chapter 9. I think it was, because those sacrifices didn't make it perfect. Those sacrifices was a shadow of good things to come. All right. It was teaching about the coming of this perfect sacrifice that Yahushua would be. Read.
Khan. Verse 2. For then would they not have ceased to be offered.
Come on.
Because that the worshipers, once purged, should have had no more conscience of sins.
Come on.
Verse 3. But in those sacrifices, there is a remembrance again made of sins every year.
So it's a remembrance of sin. It's not purging that. It's not getting that out of your system. All right. It's not getting it out of your system, because under that law, It was a shadow of good things to come. That law was teaching you to do what? If you commit an act, you do a sacrifice, and you good. You do that again next year. What do? You do a sacrifice, then you good. It's not purging you. It's not getting all of that out of your system and out of your mind. It's just not. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a wound that needs stitches. All right, read.
Khan. Verse 3, Salakia.
Verse 3.
Verse 3. But in those sacrifices, there is a remembrance again made of sins every year.
It's a remembrance of sin every year. Go
Verse
ahead.
4. For it is not possible that the blood of bulls and of goats should take away sins. Verse 5. Wherefore, when he cometh into the world.
All right, stop. Read verse 4 again.
Khan. It's the book of Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 4. For it is not possible that the blood of bulls and of goats should take away sins.
All right, so that's under the first covenant. The sacrifices, those were shadows. But now we coming into a different covenant. All right, we're coming into a more glorious covenant. And I spoke about this when we first started. I'm gonna touch on this really quick. Go to 1 Corinthians 3. 2 Corinthians 3.
Khan.
Verse 6.
Khan. This is the book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 3, verse 6.
Come on.
Who also have made us able ministers of the New Testament.
So now we under this New Testament. We under this new covenant. All right. And we ministers in the School of Universal Practical Knowledge. We're ministers of this new covenant. Read.
Khan. Not of the letter.
Not of the letter. Read.
But of the spirit.
But of the spirit. So when he's saying not of the letter, he's saying because under the letter of the law, following the letter of the law, remember, it was only putting a Band-Aid on it. You still consciously was not purged of that, the consciousness of sin. All right. So that brought forth death because it was teaching you what? You commit the act, you do a sin. You do an offering. You commit an act, or do something wrong, you do an offering, you do a sacrifice. But we know that those sacrifices based on what we just read doesn't take away sin. It doesn't take away the consciousness of sin. All right. It only teaching you under the old covenant, if you commit an act, you get stoned. That was the judgment under that. If you sinned and did something wrong, you did a sacrifice. If you did something wrong where it calls for a judgment, what happens? You would get stoned. So this is why it says, but the letter, not of the letter, but of the spirit. The letter killeth, but the spirit giveth life. Because the spirit is teaching you consciously not to commit these sins, not to commit these transgressions. That's what it's teaching you. That's what Christ came to do. Christ, Yahushua, he came to teach you a more glorious covenant by putting it in your mind. We're making it like, as I would say, a muscle memory. It's like someone going to the gym and you practice a certain combination. Then when you get in the ring and it's a muscle memory, you do that same combination. It's the same thing. Yahushua came to teach us the law, to put it in our minds. Put it in our minds, not to say, if you commit an act, here's what you could do. You could do a sacrifice. If you commit that act, now you have to be judged for your act. He came and brought grace that now that act that will get you killed like adultery, now you got grace. This is why it says, but the spirit give it life. I really wanted to get that out there so that you can really understand the difference in the two when dealing with the law. Verse 7.
Honorable Khan. But if the ministration of death written and engraven in stones was glorious.
So it's saying the old covenant was glorious. Oh, it was glorious. All right. We're not downgrading the old covenant. Here in the School of Universal Practical Knowledge, we teach the whole Bible. The Old Covenant, the Old Testament, and the New Testament. Read.
so that the children of Israel could not steadfastly behold the face of Moses for the glory of his countenance,
Come on.
which glory was to be done away.
Come on.
Verse 8, how shall not the ministration of the Spirit be rather glorious?
Come on.
Verse 9, for if the ministration of condemnation be glory, much more doth the ministration of righteousness exceed in glory.
So it's talking about the glory of the old covenant, and it's talking about the glory of the new covenant. The glory of the new covenant that brings life, that grace that allows you, okay, if you commit a sinful act that you should be killed for, or you do, you're not circumcised on the 8th day and you can't come back. Now under this covenant, you can come back, right? Under this covenant, you got grace. All right. You shouldn't be stoned. You shouldn't be killed, because the letter kill it, but the spirit which Yahushua was teaching and brought this New Testament, this new covenant, gives life. All right. So you got two glorious covenants. Now go back to Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 5. Salakia. We're going to start at Hebrews 4 and 15. Start at 14, Salakia.
Khan. This is the book of Hebrews, chapter 4, verse 14.
Now remember, under the Old Testament, it was glorious. But under the New Testament, it exceeds that glory, because now it's bringing life. Now we are a royal priesthood. Now we have a different priestly order. All right. Under the old covenant, the priest, every year it would be the priest would change. When the priest dies, another priest comes on. That's the earthly or the worldly orderance. When one priest would die, another one has to replace him. Okay, keep that in mind. That's under that old glory, under the Levitical priesthood. There was not a Levitical priesthood. There was not a high priest under the old covenant that was forever. It was under the order of the Most High. It had to change every year. It had to change. It wasn't the same. If one would die, another one would come on. All right. So you got to keep that in mind. So Hebrews 4 and 14.
Khan. Seeing then that we have a great high priest.
So we have a great high priest under this new covenant, under this second testament. Read.
That is passed into the heavens. Yahushua, the Son of thy power, let us hold fast our profession.
See, hold fast to your profession, because this high priest here under this covenant, he's more glorious than that old covenant. He's more glorious than the priesthood of Aaron. Remember, he's coming now to make us a priest, a generation of priests. But in order to do that, we have to have a high priest that exceeds the high priest of the old covenant, which Aaron represented, the Levites represented. Read.
Khan. For we have not an high priest which cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmities.
All right. So this goes back to when you read Hebrews 2 and 18. Read that again. Hold that what you just read.
Khan.
Let's go.
It's the book of Hebrews, chapter 2, verse 18. For in that he himself has suffered being tempted, he is able to succor them that are tempted.
So remember, now go back to Hebrews 4 and
15.
So remember, he was tempted like us. So now he can give us aid. He can teach us on how we should respond to times when we are tried, times when we want to give up, times when we don't want to forgive a brother, times when we don't want to forgive a sister, time when we want to fall by temptation of the enemy. He can aid us now. All right. Read that again. 15.
Khan. This is the book of Hebrews, chapter 4, verse 15. For we have not an high priest which cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmities.
Remember, he went through the same experiences we went through. He came and lived on the planet as a servant, right? As a man, as a seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob from the tribe of Judah. He was touched by our infirmities. Read.
But was in all points tempted like as we are.
So he was tempted just like us. Yahushua was tempted just like you and I. Read.
Yet without sin.
Yet without sin. So he was teaching us. That's what we have to do. We don't have to transgress the law. You don't got to transgress the law because because you like swan. You think it's okay to eat it and the Most High not going to judge you because you follow all the rest of the laws. You just don't like that one. No, that ain't how it work. That's not how it work. Read.
Verse 16. Let us therefore come boldly into the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need.
All right. Keep going.
This is the book of Hebrews, chapter 5, verse 1.
Come on.
For every high priest taken from among men is ordained for men in things pertaining to God.
This is what I was talking about when I said that the high priest had to be changed every year. I'm gonna give you an example of it. Go to Exodus chapter 28. Show you what I'm talking about.
Uh,
28 verse 1.
It's the book of Exodus, chapter 28, verse 1. And take thou unto thee Aaron, thy brother, and his sons
and
with
who?
him. Aaron, thy brother, and his sons.
And his sons, what?
With him.
Come on.
From among the children of Israel.
So take them from among the children of Israel. Read.
That he may minister unto me in the priest's office.
So it was Aaron and his sons. Read.
Even Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, Ithamar, Aaron's sons.
All right. So remember, we read about Eleazar, that he actually took over that chief priest. But the point is, this priesthood was ordained by men. Go back to Hebrews 5. Read that from the top again.
Come
on.
Give me 1 second, sir.
Let's get it.
It's the book of Hebrews, chapter 5, verse 1. For every high priest taken from among men is ordained for men in things pertaining to God, that he may offer both gifts and sacrifices for sins.
Come on.
Who can have compassion on the ignorant and on them that are out of the way? For that he himself also is compassed with infirmity.
So he himself is talking about that high priest. So that very high priest that's actually coming and doing the sacrifice for you, he himself is compassed with sin. He himself has transgressed the law. So what do we got to do? Verse 3.
And by reason hereof he ought, as for the people, so also for himself to offer for sins.
So he offered up sin for himself, because guess what? He's sinning. So look, the one that's actually going and doing the sin offering for you, he's transgressing the law, and you're transgressing the law, because this is what we're taught. This is how we followed the law in the old covenant. This is how we did it. All right, read.
And no man taketh his honor unto himself.
Come on.
But he that is called of God, as was Aaron.
So he's saying, listen, Aaron calling, and no man supposed to be called of himself. All right. Nobody, a man doesn't honor himself. Yahushua talked about this in go to John 8. Look at John 8 and 8 and 54.
This is the book of John, chapter 8, verse 54.
Come on.
Yahweh shall answer, if I honor myself, my honor is nothing.
So if he honor himself, his honor is nothing. All right. This goes back to, remember, where he says in verse Hebrews 5 and 4, and no man taketh this honor unto himself, but he that is called. So read that again.
If I honor myself, my honor is nothing.
Come on.
It is my Father that honoreth me, of whom ye say that he is your God.
So your high power is honoring him. All right. This is what he's saying. But he's saying if you honor yourself, like who comes in and honor themselves? That's real selfish and arrogant. But the point is, now he's showing you that the Most High in verse 4 of Hebrews 5 and 4, it was the Most High that called Aaron. All right. Now, verse 5. Hebrews 5 and 5.
Come. So also Christ glorified not himself to be made an high priest, but he that said unto him, Thou art my son, today have I begotten thee.
So notice what he's saying. So also the Mashiach glorified not himself. So he didn't glorify himself, all right, to be made a high priest. So he didn't make himself a high priest, but he that said unto him, who said it unto him? The Most High. Thou art my son. Today have I begotten thee. Where and when was this said? Where and when was this said? Where did Yahushua say, the Most High, do this? Because he's saying this is where and how he was glorified. So I'm going to give you one where he was glorified. Now remember, Yahushua ministry didn't begin until when? When did Yahushua ministry begin? Officer Zarabakar, you know?
Salaki, I believe, when he was at the age of 30.
Let's go to Matthew 3. Matthew 3 and 11.
Khan. It's the book of Matthew, chapter 3, verse 11. I indeed baptize you with water.
You did what? Who is this talking?
Like, is this John?
John. Oh, and who is he talking about?
He's referring to Christ.
Right. And what is he talking about?
He was referring to water baptism, but he was saying how the person who cometh after him is greater than he is.
Okay. Question. When a high priest is called, do you know how, what's the ceremony do we got to go through? Let me see if I can find that slide. Do you know?
Nah.
All right, hold on. Let me see if I can find that because it's important. It's kind of important right now. So, Lockie, give me just 1 second. Hold on. Give me a sec. That's it. All right, hold on. I actually had that precept. Let me see if I can find. All right. What I'm looking for is where when you're called as a priest, and because when you're called as a priest, you got to be washed, you got to be cleansed. That's what I'm looking for. Hold on. I can't find it right now. All right, under the old covenant, when they were called as a priest, they would be cleansed. All right. So when they going into their ministry, they not only are their garments made, but they're cleansed, they're purified, they're washed, and that's what I was looking for. All right, because that's important. I hope I can pull it. Most I will, and I can pull it before we're done. But go ahead, Matthew 3:11. Read that again.
I indeed baptize you with water.
So he's saying, John the Baptist is saying, I indeed baptize you with water. All right, go ahead.
Unto repentance.
Mm-hmm.
But he that cometh after me is mightier than I, whose shoes I am not worthy to bear.
All right. So we know what this event is. This is the event when Yahushua was cleansed. This is the event when he was purified, right? Go to verse 16.
And Yahushua, when he was baptized, went up straightway out of the water. And lo, the heavens were opened unto him.
Come on.
And he saw the spirit of thy power descending like a dove and lighting upon him.
Read.
Verse 17. And lo, a voice from heaven saying, this is my beloved son.
This is who?
My beloved son.
Come on.
In whom I am well pleased.
When did he ever say that to any other? Did he ever say that to an angel?
Lies.
He never said that to an angel, right? So he said, this is my beloved son who I am well pleased, right? So the Most High here, going back to Hebrews 5. What was that? Hebrews 5 and 5.
Come
on.
So also Christ glorified not himself to be made an high priest, but he that said unto him, thou art my son, today have I begotten thee.
Today I have what?
I begotten thee.
So when Yahushua was baptized, he was purified, that ministry began. The office of that high priest, it began. Read.
Verse 6. As he saith also in another place.
So he also said this in another place in the book of Psalms. Go ahead.
Thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedec.
For how long?
Forever.
For how long?
Forever.
Forever. Read.
Who in the days of his flesh.
Salakia. So in verse 6, he's saying, thou art, who is thou art? Yahushua. Thou art a high priest forever. So he's a high priest continuously. He's not a high priest like the old covenant. The old covenant, the priest had to be changed. One would die, another one would come. Another one would die, another one would come. All right. Under that covenant, the letter kill it. But now under this covenant, it's the spirit that give it life. So now this high priest is not dying. This high priest is a high priest for how long?
Forever.
Forever. After what?
The order of Melchizedek.
After the order of Melchizedek. All right. So now let's explore that. Go over to Hebrews 7. Read.
This is the book of Hebrews, chapter 7, verse 1.
Salakia. Can you start at verse 13?
This is the book of Hebrews.
6. Hebrews 6 and 13. Salakia.
This is the book of Hebrews, chapter 6, verse 13.
Come on.
For when God made promise to Abraham,
read,
because he could swear by no greater.
This is a heavy statement, because what he's saying is when you swear, you always swear by something that's greater than yourself, right? But he's saying when the Most High made a promise to Abraham, he swore, but he couldn't swear by anything that was greater than himself. But he made an oath to Abraham. Read.
Saying, surely, blessing I will bless thee.
Come on.
And multiplying I will multiply thee.
Come on.
And so, after he had patiently endured, he obtained the promise.
So he obtained that promise. Go ahead.
For men verily swear by the greater.
So men, that's how men make oaths. They make oaths by swearing by something that's greater. Go ahead.
And an oath for confirmation is to them an end of all strife.
So an oath is confirmation. It ends the bickering. It ends the division if a man make an oath. A man's word was his bond. Go ahead.
Wherein God, willing more abundantly to shew unto the heirs of promise the immutability of his counsel.
So it's the unchangeable. It's the the promise that is immutable of his counsel. It means it's not changeable. It can't be changed. Go ahead.
Confirmed it by an oath.
So he confirmed this with an oath. Read.
That by two immutable things.
By two immutable things. Go ahead. What was the two immutable things? Himself and his word. Himself and his oath. Because he couldn't swear by anything greater than himself. So he had to give his oath and his word. It's unchangeable. Whatever he's saying, that's what it is. Read.
In which it was impossible for God to lie.
Read.
We might have a strong consolation, who have fled for refuge to lay hold upon the hope set before us.
Come on.
Which hope have as an anchor of the soul, both sure and steadfast, and which endureth into that which is veiled. Verse 20, whither the forerunner is for us enter, even Yahushua made a high priest forever.
Follow.
Forever.
Come on.
After the order of Melchizedek.
Come on. Verse 7 and 1.
For this Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God.
So when it says king of Salem, the word Salem means peace. So he's the king of peace. All right. He's not a Hamite. He's not the king of Hamites. All right. This is something that idiots be saying. When it says king of Salem, it's talking about the word Salem means peace. So he's the king of peace. Read.
Who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the kings.
Come on.
And blessed him.
Come on.
To whom also Abraham gave a 10th part of all. First being by interpretation, king of righteousness.
Come on.
And after that also king of Salem.
Come on.
Which is king of peace.
Which is what?
King of peace.
This is not a land where he's the king of. This is the appearance of Yahushua. This is the appearance of the Mashiach, Salakia. This is the appearance of the Mashiach. Read.
Without father, without mother.
Without father, without mother. So remember, Melchizedek just came on the scene. We ain't see a genealogy. What nothing put out, laid out where he came from or anything. This was Yahushua. He came without mother and without father. Read.
Without descent, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like unto the Son of God, abideth a priest continually.
For how long?
Continually.
Continuously. Remember, because we are royal priesthood. And now our high priest is forever after the order of Melchizedek, not after the order of a more worldly orderance. All right. When I mean worldly orderance, talking about men that became high priests and died, and then it was replaced, and then became the high priest and died, and then another one came. No, he's a high priest continuously. He ain't never dying. We under a greater and a more glorious covenant. Read.
Honorable Khan. Now consider how great this man was, unto whom even the patriarch Abraham gave the tenth of the spoils. And verily, they that are the sons of Levi, who receive the office of the priesthood, have a commandment to take tithes of the people according to the law.
According to the law. I just wanted to get that out there. Now we're going to, because our time is getting tight. So I want to jump down to Hebrews 7 and 11. Speaking about the Levites.
Honorable Khan.
Let's get it.
If therefore perfection were by the Levitical priesthood.
So if perfection was given through that Levitical priesthood, remember, Melchizedek actually came on the scene before Aaron was even born. He came on the scene. So he's saying, if therefore perfection came by the Levitical priesthood, read.
For under it the people received the law.
So under the people to receive the people received that law, read.
What further need was there that another priest should rise after the order of Melchizedek?
So what was the need for a priest to rise up after the order of Melchizedek? Meaning, what was the reason for, it wouldn't be a reason for a priesthood to be ordained by the Most High that's continuously forever. If perfection came through that priesthood, read.
And not be called after the order of Aaron.
Come on.
For the priesthood being changed, there is made necessity of a change also of the law.
So if the priesthood changed, there had to be a change in the law. Read.
For he of whom these things are spoken pertaineth to another tribe.
So this pertained to another tribe because Yahushua wasn't from the tribe of Levite. He was from the tribe of Judah. So that's why it says, for he of whom these things are spoken pertaining to another tribe. So this is talking about someone from another tribe. Read.
Of which no man gave attendance at the altar.
So no one talked about this at the altar. No one spoke about this right here. Oh, it's prophesied in the scriptures, but it wasn't under the law to be talked about that a Judite had to come up and be a high priest. Read.
For it is evident that our Lord sprang out of Judah.
Sprang out of who?
Out of Judah.
Come on.
Of which tribe Moses spake nothing concerning priesthood.
Moses didn't give the law and say that a priest had to come from the tribe of Judah. Read.
Khan. And it is yet far more evident, for that after the similitude of Melchizedek.
After the similitude of who?
Melchizedek.
Remember, Melchizedek is forever. Read.
There arises another priest.
So after Melchizedek, it's going to arise another priest. Read. Which is talking about Yahushua.
Who is made not after the law of a carnal commandment.
Not made after not made this covenant that's talking about the order of Melchizedek. It was not made after the law of a carnal commandment. What was that carnal commandment? Talking about the Levitical law. The Levitical law taught what? The high priest would live, then another high priest would come on, and when he died, take his place. Another high priest would die, then another one would come and replace him. This priesthood under Melchizedek is forever. It's forever. It's not after the carnal commandment. Read.
Khan. Salakia. For me, but after the power of an endless life.
Of a what?
An endless life.
Of an endless life. Listen, if John 3:16 says, so the Most High loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believe in him should not perish, but have an everlasting life. This is an everlasting world. So under an everlasting world, it had to be a covenant with a high priest that was everlasting, that was forever. Remember, he's coming to establish what type of world, Zarabakar? Is he coming to establish a kingdom that's going to end or a kingdom that's forever?
A kingdom that's forever.
So in order to have a kingdom that is established under a covenant forever, you have to have a priesthood that is continuously after the order of Melchizedek. And if you go to Isaiah, you don't got to go there, but I'm giving it to the people that's watching. If you go to Isaiah 45 and 17, you will see that everlasting world. You will see that power of an endless life that he just read, that our high priest after the order of Melchizedek, which is Yahweh Shah Mashiach, what he's bringing under this second covenant. Verse 17.
Khan. For he testifieth, thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek.
So it's after the order of Melchizedek, all right? After the order of Melchizedek, you can find that in Psalms 110 and 4, all right? Now we're going to shoot over to verse, chapter 8. We're going to conclude this matter.
Verse 1.
Khan.
The book of Hebrews, chapter 8, verse 1. Now of the things which we have spoken, this as the sum.
So this is the sum of everything that Paul is saying that wrote this epistle. This is the sum of everything. Go ahead, read.
We have such an high priest who is set on the right hand of the throne of the majesty in the heavens.
So we got a high priest that's sitting on the right hand of the Most High. We don't have a high priest that is compassed with his own infirmities, and he's going and he's offering up sacrifices for us and himself. We have a high priest that was exposed to the same temptations as us, but he overcame them. That's a great high priest right there. All right, read. And he's sitting on the right hand of the Father. Verse 2.
Khan. A minister of the sanctuary and of the true tabernacle.
Of a what?
And of the true tabernacle.
Of a true tabernacle. Read.
Which the Lord pitched and not man.
Come on.
For every high priest is ordained to offer gifts and sacrifices.
Come on.
For it is of necessity that this man have somewhat also to offer.
Come on.
For if he were on earth, he should not be a priest.
Come on.
Seeing that there are priests that offer gifts according to the law.
Come on.
Who serve unto the example of the shadow. Salakia, who serve unto the example and shadow of heavenly things.
Come on. As
Moses was admonished of God when he was about to make the tabernacle.
He was admonished by God. The Most High was getting on him, all right, when he was about to do the tabernacle. Read.
For see, saith he.
This is what he said to him. Go ahead.
That thou make all things according to the pattern shewed to thee in the mount.
What is he talking about? What are you talking about? He says, who served as an example and shadow of heavenly things, as Moses was admonished of the Most High power when he was about to make the tabernacle. For seeing, said he, the Most High said that that thou make all things according to the pattern showed to thee in the mountain. What is he talking about?
He's referring to the law?
Nope. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and get right to it. What it's talking about is the Most High showed Moses a pattern. He showed him the true tabernacle that was in heaven. And Moses had to make it exactly like that.
Right.
Exactly like that. So when you go and you read how the Most High was telling Moses about the high priest order and the priest of the priesthood order of the Levites, and how to do the operations of the tabernacle, and how to make the tents of the tabernacle, and how to make the gates of the tabernacle, and how to put the colors together in the tabernacle. He had to follow a certain pattern that he saw that the Most High showed him from heaven, that was in heaven. That's what he had to do. So when he says, said he, that thou make all things according to the pattern showed to thee in the mount. Verse 6.
But now have he obtained a more excellent ministry.
Come on.
By how much also he is the mediator of a better covenant.
So this is a better covenant. Remember, we read in Corinthians that this, not saying the old covenant wasn't good, it wasn't glorious, but this one is more glorious. It's because this teaches the spirit of the law, which brings that life, that endless power, that endless world. Read.
Khan. For if that first covenant had been faultless, then should no place have been sought for the second. For finding fault with them.
Read.
He saith, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah.
So he's making a new covenant with the house of Israel, with the house of Judah. Read.
Not according to the covenant that I have made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt.
Come on. Now remember, this is the sum of the matter. Everything that he's speaking about, the high priest, the tabernacle, the sacrifices, this is the sum of the matter. Read. It's all about this new covenant. Come on, verse 10.
Khan. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my laws into their mind and write them in their hearts, and I will be to them a God, and they shall be to me a people.
See how this is a different type of covenant? It has a different type of glory. This glory, he's putting it in our minds. Remember, I was saying before, Yahweh came to show us the spirit of the law. He came to show us the spirit of that. All right? A whole different covenant under a whole different priest that was a priesthood where he was exposed but not affected. We have to now be exposed but not affected. We exposed to it, but not affected. This is what Yahweh came to teach us. And by doing that and practicing and walking in that, it would be in your heart. It would be in your mind. It would be a part of you. Read.
And they shall not teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, know the Lord.
Come on.
For all shall know me, from the least to the greatest.
Come on.
For I will be merciful to their unrighteousness, and their sins, and their iniquities will I remember no more.
Read.
And that he saith.
And that in saying all that, remember the sum of the matter. In saying that, he said, read.
A new covenant.
A what?
A new covenant.
A new covenant. And that new covenant is under the order of a priest that is continuously forever. It's under a priesthood where the high priest don't die and a new high priest comes in. This high priest is continuously forever at the right hand of the Father. Read.
He has made the first old.
He had made the first what?
Old.
He made the first old. Read.
Now that which decayeth and waxeth old.
That old one that he made old is ready, is decaying and is ready to decay and wax old and is ready to do what?
Vanish away.
Ready to do what?
Vanish away.
It's ready to vanish away. That Old Testament, that old covenant on the letter, kill it. It's not saying that the law is done away. It's not saying, because that would be a contradiction when Yahweh said, think not that I come to destroy the law. Remember, it was a change in the priesthood. We read this, all right? So that's what the new covenant is all about. The new covenant is establishing a kingdom that is going to be forever. An endless power, a world without end. And in order to do that, and in order for us to be that royal priesthood, we have a high priest that is at the right hand of the majesty of the Father. And that high priest is continuously forever after the order of Melchizedek. All right. So I'm going to turn the class over to Officer Zarabakar.
This is the ISUPK security announcements. Rule for new brother and sister. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to learn and to shed themselves of the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, they are to seek counsel from the heads. Tithes, which is a commandment. Numbers 18:21 and Malachi 3:8-10 means 10th in Hebrew, ma'asharah. 10th of every penny of any increase the Lord gives you. Mm-hmm. Give to General Mayaka Allah or teacher.
Just give it to, right.
Priest fund, free will offering for priests, not mandatory. Whatever amount or whatever size bottle you would like. Upcoming holy convocations. The Feast of Purim, the 14th and the 15th day of the 12th month, which is in April.
February.
Salakia, February. Mm-hmm. Next Monday. Is that the 14th, sir?
14th and the 15th.
The 14th and the 15th. Also, this is not a high holy day, but we are having a lecture called The State on February 26, 2022, from 4 to 9 p.m. It's called The State of White Supremacy, hosted by our very own, Delaware's own Officer Tazaiwan and Officer Matazapa. Tickets are $20. You could contact any officer that's in our school for tickets.
Just taking $20 donations.
Just taking $20 donations. The water. With that being said, Mina Israel Amijam.
No, anyone wants to join the school.
Oh, Salakia, if anyone wants to be a trooper in the school, start to wearing all black, boots, shirts, pants, headbands, or scarf. With that being said, men of Israel, Amijam, we give the brothers one courtesy salute. Amijam Shabbat, Amijam, Barak, Yahweh Shem Yahshua Barakatham, Yajmatah. We're gonna give the Sar. We're gonna give the sisters one courtesy salute.
So Sar turn.
Sar turn and face the sisters. Men of Israel, Amijam, Amijam Shabbat, Amijam, Barak, Yahweh Shamar Alatham by Hashem Yahushai. Yahya Matai. Class dismissed.
Good job.